The difference between a $100,000 career and a $500,000 career is not intelligence. It is not effort. It is the ability to think without interruption. Most professionals work 12-hour days and produce 3 hours of real output. They confuse motion with progress. They answer emails, attend meetings, and switch between 17 browser tabs, all while believing they are executing at a high level. They are not. They are operating in a state of continuous, partial attention. Their prefrontal cortex is hemorrhaging cognitive resources. Their best thinking, the kind that produces breakthrough strategy, elegant solutions, and competitive differentiation, never materializes. This is not a failure of discipline. This is a failure of architecture. Deep work is not a productivity trend. It is a cognitive structure that determines whether your brain operates as a high-performance asset or a low-bandwidth reactor to external stimuli. The question is not whether you work hard. The question is whether you have architected the conditions under which your brain can execute complex thinking without cognitive interference. This video dissects the psychological infrastructure of deep work, not as motivation, but as systems engineering for knowledge professionals. The modern knowledge worker operates in a cognitive environment designed for failure. Studies from the University of California, Irvine show that the average professional switches tasks every 3 minutes. Research from Microsoft indicates that after an interruption, it takes an average of 23 minutes to return to the original task at full cognitive capacity. This is not merely lost time. This is attention residue, a psychological phenomenon documented by organizational behavior researcher Sophie Leroy. When you switch from task A to task B, a portion of your attention remains allocated to task A. Your cognitive bandwidth is fragmented. You are not thinking. You are context switching. The economic cost is severe. Cal Newport, in his research on deep work, estimates that professionals who cannot sustain 90-minute blocks of uninterrupted focus lose 40% of their productive capacity. For a knowledge worker earning $150,000 annually, this represents $60,000 in unrealized value. But the financial loss is only the surface problem. The deeper issue is cognitive atrophy. When your brain never enters sustained focus states, it loses the ability to handle cognitive load. Your threshold for complexity decreases. Your tolerance for ambiguity shrinks. You become dependent on immediate feedback loops, email notifications, Slack messages, meeting confirmations, because your brain has been conditioned to operate in reactive mode. This is not abstract theory. This is measured cognitive decline. Neuroscientist Earl Miller from MIT confirms the human brain is not built for multitasking. When you attempt to process multiple streams of complex information simultaneously, your prefrontal cortex divides attention, increases error rates, and elevates cortisol, the stress hormone associated with decision fatigue. You are not optimizing for productivity. You are optimizing for exhaustion. The professionals who win are not working harder. They are working in environments where their cognitive architecture is protected. Deep work is not willpower. It is environmental design layered with neurological understanding. The psychology behind effective deep work rests on 3 cognitive principles: attentional control, working memory optimization, and ultradian rhythm alignment. Principle 1, attentional control in the default mode network. Your brain operates in 2 primary modes: task-positive network, focused execution, and default mode network, mind-wandering, self-referential thought. Research from cognitive neuroscience shows that high performers can rapidly suppress the default mode network and sustain task-positive activation for extended periods. This is not genetic. This is trained. The mechanism is pre-commitment. Studies from behavioral economics, particularly the work of Dan Ariely, demonstrate that humans perform better under conditions of constrained choice. When you eliminate decision points, what to work on, when to check email, whether to take a call, you free cognitive bandwidth for execution. Deep work is not about resisting distraction. It is about designing environments where distraction is structurally impossible. Principle 2, Working Memory and Cognitive Load Theory. Your working memory, the mental workspace where active thinking occurs, has limited capacity. Psychologist George Miller's research established that humans can hold approximately 7 chunks of information in working memory at once. When you introduce additional cognitive load, notifications, background noise, visual clutter, you reduce available capacity for complex problem solving. This is why open plan offices destroy productivity. It is not merely noise, it is cognitive interference. Research from the Journal of Environmental Psychology shows that professionals in private offices produce higher quality work and report lower cognitive fatigue than those in shared spaces. The difference is not personality, it is working memory protection. High performers understand this. They architect physical and digital environments that minimize extraneous cognitive load. They use noise-canceling headphones not for music, but for silence. They schedule deep work blocks during their biological peak hours, typically late morning when cortisol is high but stable. They batch shallow work, email, admin tasks into dedicated time blocks, treating it as a separate operational mode. Principle 3, Ultradian Rhythms and Recovery Architecture. Your brain operates in 90-minute ultradian cycles. Research from sleep scientist Nathaniel Kleitman shows that cognitive performance follows a predictable wave: 45 to 90 minutes of high capacity, followed by a 20-minute recovery trough. Most professionals ignore this. They attempt to sustain focus for 4-hour blocks, then wonder why their thinking quality collapses. Elite performers work with their neurology, not against it. They structure deep work in 90-minute sessions, followed by deliberate recovery: walking, hydration, complete mental disengagement. This is not laziness. This is capacity management. Cognitive psychologist Kay Anders Ericsson's research on deliberate practice confirms experts in any field, chess, surgery, software engineering, practice in focused intervals with structured rest. The amateurs work longer. The professionals work smarter. The architecture of deep work is a system, not a habit. It requires 4 structural layers. Layer 1, Environmental Engineering. Your environment is not neutral. It is either optimized for deep work or optimized for distraction. High performers treat their workspace as a cognitive laboratory. They control visual complexity, minimal objects in the visual field. Research shows that visual clutter increases cognitive load by up to 20%. Auditory environment, either complete silence or consistent white noise. Variable sounds, conversations, notifications, trigger involuntary attentional shifts. Digital boundaries, airplane mode during deep work blocks. Email and messaging apps closed, not minimized. This is not extreme, this is baseline protection. Layer 2, Temporal Allocation. Deep work is not squeezed between meetings. It is the anchor around which everything else is scheduled. Framework, the 4-hour rule, derived from research on knowledge work productivity. 4 hours of deep work per day represents the upper limit of sustainable cognitive output for complex tasks. Beyond 4 hours, quality degrades exponentially. Elite professionals structure their day in reverse. Identify the 1 to 3 tasks that require deep cognitive processing. Schedule 2-hour deep work blocks during biological peak hours. Batch all reactive work, meetings, email, calls, into designated afternoon windows. Treat deep work blocks as non-negotiable, more important than any meeting. Layer 3, Cognitive Warm-Up Protocol. Your brain does not shift into deep work instantly. It requires a transition protocol. High performers use a 15-minute pre-work ritual. Review session objective: What specific output will this block produce? Eliminate decision points. All materials prepared in advance. No mid-session research. Set environmental conditions. Temperature, lighting, hydration, noise control. Prime the cognitive pump. 5 minutes reviewing yesterday's work to activate relevant neural networks. This is not superstition. This is priming. Research from cognitive psychology shows that mental warm ups reduce task initiation friction and increase sustained attention duration. Layer 4 Output measurement. What gets measured gets optimized. Track not hours worked, but cognitive output produced. Elite professionals measure deep work hours per week, target minimum of 15 hours. Output quality, number of strategic documents completed, problem solved, systems designed. Cognitive residue, how long after a deep work session does mental clarity persist? This data reveals patterns. Which time blocks produce the highest quality thinking, which environmental variables correlate with sustained focus, which tasks genuinely require deep work versus which can be batched as shallow work. Deep work is not romantic, it is engineered. The Stoics understood a principle that modern professionals have forgotten. You do not control external events, but you control your attention allocation. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Deep work is the modern application of this ancient principle. You cannot control the volume of emails you receive. You cannot control your company's meeting culture. You cannot control the algorithmic assault of digital distractions, but you can control the architecture of your attention. Every professional faces the same choice: operate as a reactor to external stimuli, or operate as an architect of cognitive capacity. The reactor answers every notification, attends every meeting, stays busy, feels productive, produces mediocre output. The architect designs time blocks, protects cognitive bandwidth, says no to most requests, appears less busy, produces exponentially higher value. The financial implications are direct. Research from McKinsey estimates that knowledge workers spend 60% of their time on coordination and communication, leaving only 40% for the work itself. Among that 40%, deep work represents perhaps 10 to 15% of total time. The professionals earning $500,000 are not working 5 times harder than those earning $100,000. They are protecting 5 times more deep work capacity. This is not motivational rhetoric. This is capacity allocation mathematics. The Mind Observatory does not offer shortcuts. We offer systems. If you recognize that your thinking quality determines your income quality, that your attention is your primary asset, and that most professional environments are cognitively hostile, then this channel is your intellectual sanctuary. We do not optimize for views. We optimize for depth. What is the most expensive cognitive cost you have measured in your own work environment? Context switching, meeting overload, or something else entirely? Leave your analysis in the comments. This is not a discussion forum. This is a data sharing space for professionals optimizing cognitive infrastructure.